Welcome everyone to Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be bringing on another mindset coach, Ken Hannaman, and he's going to be talking about what he does to help people, his podcast, his book, and much more. A little bit about Ken before we get into the interview is that his purpose is to help people get into a better and stronger mindset, of course, right? He wants to help change their belief systems, and doctrines that they have been given through the school systems. And then, of course, understanding that the school system is an outdated form of education, especially in our current world where technology reigns supreme. He also talks about how he believes that our minds or consciousness programs the brain, and which then programs the body and our actions. So what we believe about ourselves and the world around us is literally what manifests over time and in our lives. So we have to be able to control that. And he has an interesting perspective on that too with his book, Ungraduated. And we're going to be talking about that idea of ungraduated in the episode, but it's going to help us get into a different type of belief system where we can start to find true happiness, our purpose, reach high levels of success, whether it be in our personal or professional lives. So there's a lot to it. But before we get into that interview, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and to follow and share this video to help continue to build a community of people who are trying to get to a powerful mindset that is going to help them get into a better place. So that is our goal. That is our mission. And Ken has the same ideas that I have when it comes to helping people with their mind. We might not be able to help you today, but the ideas that we give you are going to help you tomorrow, because you might not be ready for a mindset shift, and that is fine. But what you do have to be willing for is an opportunity to get some type of wisdom, some type of knowledge from this episode, from this podcast, and then you can say, that makes perfect sense. And it might not make complete sense today because learning is a compound effect. When it comes to understanding our mind, we are going to be dealing with a lot of defense mechanisms. Our brain doesn't want us to see how good we can be, because if it does that, then it's going to understand, well, we have a lot of work to do, and we do. So what I want for you is to pay attention and to open up your mind to that work and to the opportunity that is going to happen right now in this episode. So here's the interview with Ken and myself. Welcome, Ken Hannaman, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. How are you?
Doing well. I have you on. You are the host of the Ungraduate Living and Learning podcast, the author of Undergraduated, and a mindset coach like myself. I can go on and tell the world everything you have done, but I want, in your own words, tell the world what you do and how you help people.
Sure. Well, I'll try to be brief in the overview from my story because it is lengthy, but I'll give you guys the high level snippet version. So I come from a place that is a limiting, kind of underprivileged, lack place that I was born and raised in a town outside of Pittsburgh, where my family, God bless them, was used to a lot of the limiting life beliefs that their surroundings kind of had them entrapped within. So I always asked why and always questioned why and was always seeking more understanding as far as why things were what they were. So I was never somebody who sat too well with because I said so, or this just is the way that it is. And as I began to internalize that interpretation of life, it was made aware to me that 99%, maybe not 99%, maybe it's 90% of what happens to you in life is your own doing. And at a young age, thankfully, I was able to start putting that together. And in about my mid-20s, I really started to see the fruits of my own labor and that perspective of my own mindset changing my own outcomes. So through a lot of trial and error and a lot of mistakes, I was able to persevere past a lot of the challenges that I had. And I wanted to help people break out of the same problems that I was accustomed to. I started off in the fast food business and got a lot of people telling me, hey, why are you going into fast food? Well, I dropped out of high school and my parents were disappointed, upset with that. But I heard the whole thing about, well, you're going to be a failure, you're going to be a statistic unless you do it this way. And a lot of it is the American dream. You want to go to school, get your high school diploma, go on and graduate college, buy a house, have kids, and then live happily ever after. Well, what's happily ever after for you? And is it somebody else's dream that you're chasing? Is it somebody else's story that you're chasing? What does it mean for you? What does success look like for you? So, having had a lot of labels put on me, I wanted to make sure that I could redefine myself as living proof so that I had the credibility to say, hey, if I can do this, anybody can do this. I'm nobody special. So a lot of what I do now, I'm in the corporate space. I'm responsible for 700 restaurants, but it wasn't always that way. I was a team member all the way up from minimum wage to where I'm at now in this corporate space, and decided to branch off into these entrepreneurial ventures of mindset coaching because it's what I do. It's what I've done all my life. It's a people business, but you have to help people learn, grow, develop, become their best selves that they can possibly be, which is what I love to do. So whether it's my corporate restaurant space that I teach, coach, develop, or in the personal mindset space that I'm creating an online community with, I want people to understand that others place limits on them. And all too often they put their own limits on themselves as well, too. So that's what I'm here to talk about is how do you begin to break free of that and what internalization has to happen to start that process.
Mm-hmm. And also another part of the conversation is the normalizing of those limiting beliefs, because when you're young, you don't understand that you have these limiting beliefs bestowed upon you. You have to have a realization saying, oh, wait, people are saying I can't do something. Why are they saying that? I know I can do it. But then you have people saying that they can't do it. And that way of thinking where we have to believe what other people say rather than finding it out for ourselves, is that wisdom or knowledge, right? Because just because they have tried and failed doesn't mean we're going to try and fail also. So we have to be daring, I think, also, because yes, we can fail, but how resilient are we? Because sometimes people can say, you know what, I don't care how many times I fail, I'm going to keep on doing it until I can do it. There's a fine line between failure and success. And many people, once they get their toes right past failure, they are saying, oh, too scary. I don't want to push. I don't want to find out what's after this line. So I stay right behind it, their comfort zone, and they don't go past it. Why do you think people are so afraid to reach more in their life, a better mindset, and go after success?
Love that question. And it's such a good one because I think people are more fearful of losing what they have over caring more about what they could gain. They have that comfort zone piece that you're talking about. You also have, well, back to comfortability, right? You do not want to stretch yourself. I think the human conundrum, if you will, is that we want to get to a place that we're comfortable. And I don't fault people for that, but I'll reference it back to a great book that is written by Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap. And if you're at all familiar, or if any of your listeners are, it talks about these different zones. You have a zone of incompetence, a zone of competence, a zone of excellence, then your zone of genius or brilliance. And I think a lot of people work to get to a zone of excellence. And that's a place where life is pretty good. You're good at what you do. You have a comfortable life. You may actually have a good house and a decent income, but you're still aspiring, or you feel hollow inside. Something is still missing and you don't know what that is. And that next big leap, if you will, is about taking the next step to your zone of genius. And that's where the magic happens. That's where your superpowers come into play. That's where you can really make community or state or region or world impact. But it takes getting outside the comfort zone. And I think a lot of it comes back to ego. I'm not sure how much you study ego or get into ego, or your listeners have heard this, but ego is that thing inside of our psyche. It's part of our personality, but it's that piece that says, you remember the last time you tried this? How'd that end for you? Didn't end so well. So don't try it again. And that's the modern version of the ego that was put inside of us, that was meant to keep us safe when we were running away from lions, tigers, and bears and whatever else was chasing us around while we were in tribal settings. And I think we have to evolve to understand that because that ego is still there, it's trying to keep us safe, trying to keep us comfortable. Even if you do fail, you're learning and applying those learnings so that you can become better the next time. don't keep doing the same things over and over again. That's the definition of insanity. And then, of course, thinking you're going to have a different outcome. So it's a combination of people trying to be comfortable, then not feeling that happiness inside, not wanting to stretch, fear, ego. And then we find ourselves, in a place that's less than satisfactory, always wishing and hoping that we could have done more. So I teach and coach people, how do you get to your zone of brilliance? What are your superpowers? How can you leverage them? And how do you use them to make yourself achieve whatever it is that you want? It's not always about money. It could be about, who knows, whatever is important to your purpose, your reason for being. We can talk about that as well too. But as far as why people don't get out of it, a lot of them don't believe they can. And then, of course, it takes the focus of breaking out of that fear, that ego that likes to keep us held back. And that's where the magic happens once you try and you actually see that you can do anything you really put your mind to.
Everyone has a different experience, right? So I know people are going to be listening to you and they're going to say, you didn't have my life. You don't know how I grew up. And they're going to make themselves be out the victim. They had such a terrible life, right? And I'm not here to belittle anyone's journey because everyone has a different journey. But when I was reading about you, you have such a unique journey too, where it's not as easy as, okay, well, I did what I was supposed to do. Now I'm successful all of a sudden. There was a lot of hardship along the way. And I think, bringing people on who have already undergone the mindset process of changing their mindsets multiple times, maybe I had to change my mindset probably like 3 times just to get to where I am. And every single time it was an evolution per se because of different ages. So when I did my first mindset shift after high school, I was dealing with the high school ego. And then as I was in my mid-20s, then I was dealing with that. And then finally the final one. So it's kind of like, okay, one mindset shift is going to be powerful, but as time goes on, we have to evolve. So we learn from our experiences. So what I want from you is to kind of tell people where you came from, your difficulties that you had to overcome, and then how you rose from those challenges that came your way. Instead of being a victim, you chose to be a victor.
Yeah, thanks for that perspective too, and painting the picture there. I talk a lot about growth mindset, fixed mindset. So there's a lot of work in that space. It's not really a new concept, but you mentioned victim. That's a fixed mindset. That's life happens to me instead of for me. And it's somebody else's fault, or this happened because of. And again, back to my earlier point, instead of looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, what did I do that could have caused this? And there is about 10% of the time that life happens. Nobody wanted COVID to occur, for example. But even in that opportunity, there's been growth. There's been new success stories out of it. There's been a lot of failures and changes, and that's the one constant. Change is going to continue to occur. But in terms of some things I had to really persevere through, back to my story. So I was born in this place of lack and victim mindset, and I was taught money is the root of all evil. I was given a lot of great Christian values and a lot of great religious concepts that my family was trying hard to help me out with. And I think that it did instill a lot of great faith and perspective, but I didn't settle with, well, I'm going to just hope that something out there is going to just give me whatever it is that I need because I'm a good person. I also realized that, well, if money is the tool that this world runs off of, I am not going to set it up to be greedy and want more of it from me. I want to get to and then maintain a good standard of life. And then whatever else comes extra is going to fuel me into my purpose. And again, it starts with, why are you here? Why are we here? And not enough humans, I don't think, ask themselves this question. And again, it doesn't have to be some grandiose, large, world-changing, life-changing impact, but it could be community level, it could be family level. And it has to, I think it should extend beyond just the family because, yes, of course, we have loved ones and children, but at some point, hopefully, we live long enough to where we still have our own lives. So when it comes back to what limiting life beliefs do you have, what experiences are your truths? Is it what somebody else told you? Again, back to mine with money. If I would have kept with that mindset of money is the root of all evil, I would have been probably afraid to keep pushing myself as my income levels kept rising. And then a lot of it too is, hey, now that you've gotten this number, and for me, I always had that $100,000. Okay. When I was in my early 20s and then mid 20s, I said, I'm going to put out that number. $100,000 in base salary is my goal. And once I achieved that, a lot of people were like, okay, I'm good now. I kept reframing, not in greed, but how am I going to make more impact if I don't have more? So as long as that heart set mindset is aligned with purpose and what you're trying to do, there's no evil at all involved in that. It's whoever's at, using the tool, so to speak. It's the user that causes the evil or the greed. It can be a great thing, money. So I had that limiting life belief that I'm always level setting too. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not even yet quite a millionaire, but I'm not far off. And it's because of just making sure I keep challenging my perspective to not reach limits. Because what people have to understand is we're not our thoughts, but absolutely our thoughts do define us. We become the things that we think. We take actions or don't take actions based on what we think. So there's a lot more that I can get into, but I'll pause there with the whole money aspect and trying to always level set. And it's not about more for you and more stuff and more materialistic gains. I've gotten rid of all of that. I'm going to maintain my life. Whatever else comes, I'm going to build my platform so that I can keep helping people figure out what it is that can make them happy.
And you said something really powerful there. Our thoughts are going to make us, basically, right? And the idea of the quality of our thoughts is what a mindset coach really does, is helping you how you think, right? Your mindset. And if you can change your mind to think in a way where it's going to be more pronounced, perhaps more positive, more ambitious, you name it, right? The positive type of mindset that we're trying to have other people see or reach, they're going to start to get to a better place in their life. Now, that doesn't happen overnight. I will say that change doesn't come easy. And sometimes people want something in their life. They say, I want to do this, I want to accomplish this, but they start, but they don't finish, right? So they have this problem where they're able to start, but they don't finish, right? Think of New Year's resolutions, right? They say they're going to do something, but they don't come through to the end. They want to learn a new language. They want to go on a diet, but they can always start, but they can't finish. Why can people start easy, but can't come through with the goal, come to the finish line, and just try it again in a couple of months, maybe a year? Sometimes they don't even try anymore. Why can people start but not finish?
Another great question. And it's the conundrum of getting caught up in the future or being stuck in the past. Life only occurs in the present moment. And Eckhart Tolle in his teachings, The Power of Now, was one of the best monumental breakthroughs that I read in my late 20s that really helped frame up the mindset that if you want something, you become it now. And I know that the human mind says, well, I don't have all this money now, or I don't have this weight loss now. So it's always future leaning. And when you become it now, it's an everyday thing. You don't worry necessarily about the outcomes of that day. You will see and record that change as time goes on. I'll use the example of my own weight loss. So I don't know how much you read about me or know about me, but I can tell you this. I was mostly a skinny kid growing up, but I allowed my mindset to get off track in my 20s and then early 30s. And I made excuses. I travel too much. I'm in restaurants late, eating dinners and no time to work out. But I want to lose all this weight. I got up to about 250 pounds. I'm 6 foot. I'm now about 190, 195. And it took me 6 months, 2 pounds a week, very healthy weight loss, all during COVID, by the way. So December 26th of 2019, I got on a scale day after Christmas, did not like the outcome that I saw, 252. I knew I had gotten heavier, but I actually saw that accountable moment on the scale and said, enough's enough. So I made some changes and I framed up in my mindset, I am healthy. I am young. I am vibrant. A lot of good positive affirmations that you got to trick your mind if you have to. That whole fake it till you make it kind of thing. There's some merit behind that because it takes tricking the mind into the behaviors that then the results come. It's just that we give up because we don't see the fruits of our labor. If you think about it, even if you don't see it on the exterior, the mindset is, I am young. I am healthy. I am vibrant. I am whatever it is that you need to tell yourself to get yourself into those actions. Because then what happens is the underlying subconscious begins to back that up. So you don't unconsciously go to the chip bag and start eating chips because you're not thinking I'm unhealthy, I'm fat, which is what helps you reinforce unhealthy fat behaviors. You're reprogramming the subconscious, unconscious mind to be mindful in the moment that you do healthy things. You do things that make you feel vibrant and young and full of vitality so that the bad behaviors begin to slide away. And then in the ever present moment, one day at a time, as you measure yourself, the outcome begins to take hold. And people really get excited once they see a 5 pound, 10 pound. And for me, I kid you not, it was 2 pounds every single week. And I lost 60 pounds in June of 2020, at the height of the pandemic. I was 190 pounds. And I've maintained that for the most part, give or take 5 pounds here or there, because I have my weaknesses too. I'm not perfect. I like to eat, and cheesecake and chocolate, probably two of my, Achilles heels, but it's all in moderation. And I don't judge myself in that moment if I do partake in a reward for myself. I know that overall, I have formed the proper mindset to back up the behaviors and actions that will keep me where I want to be. And I think that's the best way that I can answer it, is that we live in a physical, slowed down, dense matter material world where things don't happen instantaneously. The thought is instantaneous. So even though you may not see the transformation before your eyes, it does happen over days, weeks, and then months. But that's the trick. You got to trick your mind into believing it, that you are these things. And that's the difference between a good affirmation and a bad one. A bad one is I will be. When you say I will be, your mind and body, heart, and soul is saying at some point in the future, you will be. You have to say it now and then believe it and then back up those actions. And if you want it badly enough, you're going to do those things.
Definitely. It's about that instant gratification too. I'm going to start, but I want it immediately.
Yeah.
So for you, you did something where you said, I'm going to lose 2 pounds a week, which is a really good thing. Even if you said, I'm going to lose 1 pound, yeah, it's going to take a little bit longer, but it's going to be something that you can see, okay, I lost a pound, I'm doing well. And I think sometimes when people go on the scale and they say, oh, I didn't lose a pound this week, or I didn't lose the weight I was supposed to lose this month, it's not working, right? Maybe they plateau for some reason. And then they say, this is not working, and they give up, right? They just say, okay, well, good effort, but this is not for me. For breaking things down into small bite-sized steps, that's important, because the brain can say, well, 1 pound, 2 pounds a week, that's easy. We can do that. Versus someone says, I want to lose 60 pounds. That's a bigger deal. So our brain is thinking about 60 pounds rather than the 2 pounds. We just have to understand, well, you said it. We have to trick our brain, and our brain will say 2 pounds, that's easy, versus 60 pounds, that's a lot of work. Okay. Things like that. And I think this happens when kids are growing up and they see how much work they have to do on something. It just correlates to when you're an adult. So for example, if you tell a kid to clean their room, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to clean my room. My room's such a mess and there's so many toys. But if you did it in a certain way, you said, well, just clean this corner of the room and we'll just leave the other stuff for later. And then say, okay, yeah, I can do that. So we just show them, okay, well, we can parcel off the work, do this today, do this tomorrow, and then in 4 days we have a clean room. But many people see the whole room as this is a big deal, right? So when we have to wash the dishes, we have to wash all the dishes. Oh, this is so much work. We'll just wash the utensils. And then now we're thinking like, okay, that's not that hard. So if we can say to ourselves, well, this is not that hard, or make it a bite-sized piece, then we can say, okay, yeah, this is not so bad. So yeah, when you want to start something and then you're trying to get to the finish line, how can you make it approachable to you? Because if you look at the marathon as a 10K versus, hanging out with your friend for 2 hours, it's going to be different, right? Now, of course, you're going to have to put in effort. You're going to be sweating. But hey, that's what a marathon is. But you don't have to run a marathon. You can go to the gym, you can diet. There's other ways to lose weight. And fitness is just one of the things that we're talking about. You can do career, relationships. It's all the same thing. We can break it down as much as we can, or how much you need, and then continue with the process. And what I wanted to get from you is that you have a book. It's called Ungraduated. And I wanted to get your interpretation of the book as a whole. And then I wanted to dive into why ungraduated.
Yes. So it's an interesting pun. I mean, it's a made up word, first of all, and it does help define a personal brand and what I stand for. Back to my earlier story, I was always good in school. I always had good grades and was always curious, but I did drop out. And then I achieved success differently. So I call it the removal of the bad and the uploading of the good. And it's the not all that we get taught is bad, but a lot of it is somebody else's belief system. And a lot of times we don't make time to really explore what our story is. So when I wrote the book, I wanted to make sure a couple things. I had a catchy, unique name that defined me, but also teed up what the book was about. It's the finding your why piece and dropping out of limiting life beliefs. And it starts off with the unknown. Like the first section of the book is, what are your blind spots? And we talk about life as I describe it scientifically with what thoughts are, what energy is, how thoughts are actually energy. It's a vibratory frequency that like attracts like aspect of we find ourselves in scenarios of like how we think. And people who are listening can always tell if you get around someone who you don't like, you don't vibe with them, they're not on your frequency, you usually find a way to avoid them. Yet you spend time with people who you do like. So whoever you're surrounding yourself with is probably who you're most comfortable with, and you become like those people. I talk in the first section of the book just the science behind it, and it's written in a very straightforward way. Even though I'm a high school dropout, I love science, and I wanted to try to keep it simple so people can understand it. But from there, it builds off of what can you do with this knowledge? What kind of ways can you really manifest what you want in life? In some ways, even instantaneously. Yes, I've manifested stuff instantaneously with thought energy and focused thought. But again, some things do take longer time and they do take action. I don't advocate that we can sit on our hands and just think ourselves into these great realities. I think that the universal laws that I talk about in the book are like gravity. Like if you jump off of a bridge and expect to survive, you better have a parachute or a really good bungee jumping cord so that you can survive that jump. Otherwise, you're going to go splat, just like everything else. It's a law of gravity. And there are some absolutes in this world. Cause and effect is one of them. Mentalism. All things start with thoughts. The principle of polarity, which is you have hot, you have cold. At what point is warm? You know, all they are is two opposite ends, but they are all the same thing. Temperature is temperature. So anyways, we get into these concepts of thought, energy, manifestation, so on and so forth. And then it goes into purpose. What can you now do with this? If you have the right mindset framed up, how do you start to see life in a more ungraduated way? How do you question more things? How do you, whatever it is put in front of you, how do you find your own truths? What are your truths? I define truths as personal experiences, not what somebody else tells me. I know that there's some common known things like the sky is blue and those types of things, but still, some things require a bit more exploring. So I advocate for lifelong learning and never stopping seeking knowledge. And until you have put some time behind it, and then better yet, experienced it, it can now be your truth. That can be a part of your underlying subconscious or conscious programming. So that's a good overview of the book. And it's a lot of true stories for myself. I will not sit here and say that my story is going to fix everybody else's story and their own purposes, but I intend to plant seeds that takes a curious mind, an open mind, down the paths of self-discovery and doing the work, turning within, finding ways to go work and live on their own terms and question anything that doesn't make sense to you. It's hard to find some answers, but it's the trying that really you'll find the fruits of your labor paying off. And that's what I wanted to do with the book. I'm still a work in progress. The last thing I'll say here is that I've been enlightened to a lot of amazing perspectives. And what I call myself enlightened, if you want to say so, sure, but not in a sense of, oh, I have it all figured out, or, oh, I am some great teacher of mankind. I think enlightenment is almost like the term becoming born again, meaning that you see life differently. I think that's where the work begins. I think that's where the true fun of life starts. I don't think enlightenment is an end goal. I think it's the beginning. I think life really starts once you begin to see things your way and you've proven for yourself what works for you. So I just love talking about these things because they're truths for me. I encourage anybody who's listening to go find your own truths and really question what story you're living and what belief systems that you've been given. And one, do you want to keep them? Because not all of them are bad, but the ones you're not sure of, are you just going through the motions because that's what you were told it's the way it's always been? Or are you going to dive deep and question those and peel apart some layers, make some time for it? Don't give me the excuse that you're too busy. It's a lot of great technology out there and things that you can habit stack into your life that you can learn on the go and learn while doing things that you enjoy doing, going for walks, working out. I have all kinds of habit stacking tricks that I use so that in my own busy lifestyle, I can still make time for these things. So I hope that helps frame up the perspective of the book and what it's about and why I wrote it. I just want to help people in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully it helps spark some interest for them and plant some seeds. And then they go water, take action, and see where life takes them.
Mm-hmm. People have to understand about books is that one book might not change your life, but that book that you do read might be the book that finally does change your life. Reading books is going to be a compound effect where you might need multiple books for one book to finally ring true to you. Think of if you have a subject, maybe not the best in, for example, math, and you're learning how to do multiplication for the first time. You're just not getting it. Third grade, you're just having a hard time. You're just not getting it. Fourth grade, you're having a hard time. You're just not getting it. But then you get that teacher in fifth grade and they just make it so lights on. I got it. I understand completely. I don't know why it took me 3 years to get this, but I finally got it. But it was a compound effect. You had two other teachers that were working with you. They were the building blocks. And then you had that fifth grade teacher who was that final piece of the puzzle that said, hey, this is multiplication again, just going full circle. And then it's like an epiphany. Oh, wow. That's so powerful. Where you can have a book where it's planting the seeds, but those seeds, you have to understand, are going to eventually create a whole garden. Of course, if they do the work and they nurture that type of mindset, those thoughts, then those are going to one day bloom. Thinking about growing a tree, for example, you're not going to plant a tree and then expect to have shade in a week or in a year. Planting a tree is the concept of I'm going to have shade for my grandchildren more so than for myself. And when you read a book, it's so much of I'm going to be planting the seeds and nurturing what seeds have already been sown. So one day they can grow into thoughts that are going to help me. So you can read multiple books. And I encourage people to read books because when I was going on my last mindset, I probably read 100 books that year. And I just needed those 100 books. And then it was like, yes, 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 because there's so much knowledge in the world that we don't know. And the idea of ungraduated, and I could be thinking of this in the wrong way, but ungraduated in the sense that we won't graduate, but not in the negative sense, but that we're lifelong learners, right? We are lifelong learners. And as long as we can approach every single day as a learner, then we're going to be open. Sometimes when we think we know everything, we won't be open. And so that's like the cockiness, the ego coming in. Well, I don't need your help. I'm just going to live my life the way I want to live it. And what happens, happens. Well, you can live that life for so long, but how long is that going to be sustainable? Because times are changing. And if you're not growing, you're going to be depreciating, you're going downhill. So we have to get into the sense or the mindset of how can we get into that growth mindset. And people like to say, well, we're going to hang around like-minded people, but you got to understand what happens if you're a negative Nancy. And so now you're hanging around negative Nancys, and before you know it, your world is filled with negativity. So we have to make sure that we are going to be around people or surround ourselves with material like your book that are going to help us become more growth-minded, more positive. And that leads us into the next way of thinking of we use this lesson, right? This epiphany almost as the building block, the starting point for us. For me, it's like when I did all this work and I finally got into a good mindset, similar to yourself, was I awakened? Was I enlightened? I would like to say, I wish I could say that, but at the same time, I knew that wasn't the way. Because if I go around telling everyone, oh, I'm enlightened, I don't need any help, then that's the opposite of what enlightened is. It's going to be the point of approaching a situation and being a beginner. Always. No matter what, even if you're an expert, going into a situation and being able to learn. So when you pick up Ungraduated and you might say, well, I read all these personal development books and I got all these programs and my mindset is so strong. I'm not saying your mindset is weak, but there's going to be something in that book that you're going to use as a building block to get to a new and stronger mindset. So what I wanted to get from you, Ken, is when someone gets to a strong mindset, what is the work that they have to do to maintain that mindset? Do they meditate? Do they have to work out? Do they have to eat? Like, what is the work involved with keeping a strong mindset once they get to a positive mindset?
I do think that once you attain it, yes, all things can be taken away and lost easily as well, too. You see people win the lottery who don't have proper mindsets, and what happens is they lose it all in 2 years because they haven't changed the underlying program. So you do approach life, I like to say, keep your baby eyes open. Always be curious. Seek first with curiosity and criticality second. So in order to keep yourself there, yeah, you have that humility about yourself. I've learned a lot in 41 years of life, really probably in 15 of that last 41, because the first 25 or so was still figuring things out. So the minute you think you have it all figured out is a minute that it can plateau or worse. So you always are seeking with curiosity. How do you continue to learn, grow, and develop? So I think it's so important to embody this. I think it becomes a lifestyle. I think that it becomes a true north, if you want to call it that, so that you have framed up that, yes, to continue to sustain this, you must be healthy. You have to take care of your body. You have to take care of your mind. You have to be getting into a practice, if you will. So I'm not a real big daily ritual kind of person, but I do have my moments. And one of the things I think is so important is the self-reflection. And I do it every morning. It's not necessarily a meditation, but I do meditate. I do make time to reflect. But every morning, there's gratitude for waking up, for having the chance to learn again. And then every night, there's gratitude. And all it takes is just a thought, a true heartfelt intention of how thankful I am to have this life, to live how I am, knowing that there's still a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering in the world that I want to help fix in some small way, whether it's one person, 10, 100, 1,000. I have a goal of 1 million people at some point being impacted positively from a seed or two that I planted that helps them along. So I do think you have to keep investing into yourself. And back to health again, I mean, I can't be the best person I can possibly be if I don't take care of myself. So that is eating well, exercising. That's the physical part. But then the mind, the mental aspect of working out the mind is important as well, too. So yeah, what are you taking in? What are you putting around yourself? Are you listening to garbage? Or are you listening to uplifting, positive thoughts? Because again, you will find yourself being pulled off track. I'm not saying you can't listen to some good rock and roll or some good old R&B hip hop or whatever it is that you're into. I listen to a variety of stuff. Heck, even the 80s one-hit wonders. I'll take it all. But I would rather be feeding my mind and listening to positivity over negativity or other more harsh things to take in, movies, documentaries. I find myself, Michael, once you define that true purpose and you have that mindset right, you just become it. And you find yourself more often than not, the things you watch are aligned with that more positive, soul searching, soul feeding, mindset empowering things that come into your life. And then you can catch yourself if you slip, because we're not perfect. If you get into a pattern that you're getting off kilter, you're more quickly able to notice how to get back on track, because I fall off track too. It's not like every single thing I do is always amazing for my mind, heart, or soul. But I'm much quicker able to recognize, okay, that was a mistake. I'm not going to judge myself for it. I'm not going to penalize, but I'm going to put that one down in the memory bank of don't do that again, unless I want to fall off track and have a deeper, more worse outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think you have to keep investing in your mind, heart, and soul in positive ways. And then it becomes a lifestyle. And it's like me, I work out every day. I have not missed a single day in almost 3 years since 2019. There's no excuse. I've done it in the earliest times in the morning. I've done it in the later mornings, but every day begins with a workout. It could be 3 a.m. if it has to be for a 5:30 a.m. flight. It could be 10 a.m. if I'm sleeping in on a Saturday morning. It doesn't matter, but my day begins with it. And the minute that I stop doing it, I know that it could be a crack, and I don't want it to be a crack. I find that that's what keeps me on track. And I think that the good habits will help people stay on track as well too. So don't hurt yourself. Don't beat yourself up if you aren't perfect. Don't judge. Just recognize it's an opportunity to realign, recenter, focus, self-assess, and get back on track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the idea of lifestyle. Once you can figure out what type of life you want, create a good routine behind that. And like you said, in the morning, if you want to do self-reflection, do it, right? In the evening, if you want to do the same thing, do it, right? What works for you? You might find something in the evening being more powerful than self-reflection. So you say, I'm going to spend time with my family and just have a chance to talk with them. You might not be looking at what your life is per se, but you can see their life too. And then you can appreciate, that's the gratitude aspect right there, where you're saying, okay, I'm looking at their life and I'm being thankful for them. So depending on the lifestyle that you want, then you just have to associate your mindset with that and the thoughts directed at those good things. Because anyone can turn on MTV or watching, Keeping Up with the Kardashians and get caught up into that, right? That drama can keep us enticed, but does it keep us fulfilled? So we have to make sure that we're being true to our mindset and staying on the path that's going to help our mind be more prosperous in the future, and then feel fulfilled and just be in a good, strong place every single day. So what I want from you, Ken, is a few last words, and then please tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you. And a few last words are just for everybody to not only continue to push past limiting life beliefs and boundaries that they may have placed on themselves, and really analyze if someone's given them that or they put it there for themselves to break through. Remember this: we are not little, mini, insignificant humans, which we've also been told that we are. That's a limiting life belief too. We are powerful individual beings, and even more powerful collectively. And that's why I think there's so much challenge in the world today. And some powers that be, I think, want it to stay that way. And that's why there's this constant struggle of where are we going and what are we doing? I would just say, really understand that change happens first with you, and then collectively it comes as well too. You can't force anything on anyone. They have to want to do it. So don't think for a second that you're not powerful. This mind, this consciousness that embodies the mind and helps you take action is more powerful than what we've been led to believe. At least that's my experience. That's my truth. I will leave anybody listening to go find that for their own truths, through their own experiences. And I would say, as far as where to find me, ungraduated.com. As of this recording, it should be done by the end of this week. We are retooling the entire website. So by the time that this airs, it should be the brand new website where it will house the book, the podcast, as well as my community and all things that will be ungraduated living. But the book is out on Amazon. The podcast is on your favorite podcast listening app of choice, which is called Ungraduated Living and Learning. But yeah, ungraduated.com is the best place. You'll find my Facebook and Instagram. So if I could direct anybody one place, ungraduated.com.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful words of wisdom from another mindset coach, helping people get into a stronger mindset, because I can tell people how to get to a strong mindset and they can listen all they want. But then if someone else comes in with similar or a variety type of speech when it comes to helping people get to a different mindset, it's more impactful. That's why I like to bring on coaches like yourself who help people get to a stronger and better mindset through coaching and through personal development, whether it be books, blogs, or podcasts. So all your information is going to be in the description box below. So if anyone's driving, you don't have to crash. Just wait. And then when you get home, you can be able to go to his website, check out his podcast, follow that, and then buy his book. It'll be on Amazon. And of course, you can get it through his website too. So everyone, Ken Hannaman. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode. As always, I'm going to keep on bringing you more coaches, more mindset along our journey, because the more people we talk to, the more people we bring on, the better we're going to be. Because as much as I would like to say I can help you alone, I understand what it takes to build people up. Sometimes we need to have multiple coaches, a team of people working together. He's also helping people in the mindset, personal development field, where he's saying, hey, if you're ready to get to a new and better, stronger mindset, I'm your guy. And he's a great guy. So I encourage people to reach out to him. Like I said, his information is in the description box below. So do not hesitate. If you want to check out his book, it's going to be a wonderful read. So a lot of good things coming your way. And there's going to be a lot more episodes coming up that are going to be a must watch for you to can maintain your mindset or to evolve your mindset into something bigger, better, and stronger. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach here in Austin, Texas. If you have any questions, you can email me coachingasession@gmail.com. I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching a Session. Until then, everyone, take care.